Hi, welcome to another episode of the Sustainable Pixel Podcast. Hello, everyone. I really can't believe it's already 2022. 2021 was quite a year. Needless to say, so was 2020, but 2021 was kind of busy for me, and it's been a while since I put an episode out, and some of you noticed that I've been a bit MIA, and I'm not going to get into details of why exactly in this episode, but just a lot was going on, and unfortunately, I didn't have much time to dedicate to this podcast, and I do want to get more episodes out, hoping that 2022 will be possible for me to do that, but, it's kind of up in the air because still got a lot going on, possibly more, but we'll see. I'm gonna do my best. And on a related note of being really busy and having a lot going on, I just want to say this for anyone who needs to hear it. If you have way too much stuff on your plate, and too many commitments and everything, take a step back. Take as many steps back as you can on things, even if you made a lot of commitments and you didn't realize that everything would happen all at once, or that other things have come up. I think it's really important to recognize when you just have too much going on and to really take care of yourself in that sense, because if you have too much and it's just causing you a lot of stress and anxiety, it's really important to back up and just be okay, sorry, I can't do this, or unfortunately there's no time for this. Other things come up, and that's just kind of how life is, and so hopefully people will understand, but it is really important for you to be able to take those steps back and take breaks, take days off, go on a vacation or a staycation, because let's be real, vacations can sometimes be way more stressful than needed. So just take time off, relax, make changes to your life that will be beneficial to you, because, burnout sucks. Burnout really sucks. So don't feel bad that you're not doing a million things all at once, because we're human. We don't need to do a million things all at once. And just take the time that you need, go slower, whatever you need, do it. Take care of yourself, because I think right now is a really important time for us to really recognize that we need to take care of our health now more than ever. Take care of yourselves where you need to, so that you can feel relaxed and refreshed. I was thankful to be able to get a little bit of a break towards the end of the year in 2021. Unfortunately, it was a little later than I would have wanted, but that was when I was able to take a little bit of a break. So hopefully getting back into the groove of some things with this podcast, and getting to talk about topics that I really care about, because that's why I like this podcast, is that I talk about things that I really care about and want to share with other people, and that's why I do it. And today's topic is one of my favorite topics to talk about, and pretty much what started my career in sustainability. If you haven't already read the title of this episode, it's about waste, and it's about zero waste to be exact. And for those of you who don't know, waste is my focus in sustainability, and a lot of my career has been me teaching people how to sort their waste correctly, specifically if they have garbage recycling and compost service regularly. But unfortunately, I'm not an expert in every single city, because it can really depend from city to city. Even if the cities are next to each other or in the same county, it can differ of what is allowed in each stream in a different city. And you may ask, why can it be different from one city to another? And I say that's a good question, because in my opinion is a very political reason. Is really just what the city might have decided on what should be accepted in the recycling or compost, Or it can be something that the garbage hauler could be like, hey, actually, there's nowhere that we can send this, so it has to go in the garbage. And then other areas will be like, well, actually, we signed a contract or agreement that has these things listed in there. So we have to keep accepting it in that waste stream just so that the people can feel like they are still recycling. So, it just really depends on where you are. But anyway, I digress. Getting back on track. To really kick us off in this episode, I want to go over what zero waste is. It's honestly a very ambitious term, in my opinion, because being involved in this sector for almost like 10 years has really shown me how difficult it is to actually achieve zero waste, because there's just so many different factors. Like, people may not know what goes into a recycling bin versus a compost bin, and different colors of those bins will really throw people off. And, there's some people who just really just don't care. So you have those people. And also, when you have like a large quantity of waste, I understand why it makes it harder for people to want to sort, because it would just take longer. I get it. I really do get it. So time is of the essence sometimes. So there's definitely a lot working against it, but I think because of all those challenges, I think that's why a lot of places like cities and just like any companies that will make these goals, these zero waste goals, they'll define zero waste as 90 to 95% diversion from landfills to kind of account for like a margin of error. And yeah, like a lot of like cities and universities too, as well as companies, will make these big like zero waste goals of becoming zero waste by like a certain year. And usually the year feels really far away, but before you know it, it really comes up right at you and you're like, oh no. And I definitely felt this because like when I was in college, my university had a big goal of being zero waste by the year 2020. And, when I was there, I was like, it's only a few years away. Like, what are you going to do? And then I, of course, wasn't there when 2020 hit. But it came and it passed. I'm pretty sure my university never actually reached that goal. A lot of places that I've worked with actually really plateau around like 70-75%. So it's pretty challenging, honestly, to get there, especially if you have like a lot of different factors and if you generate a lot, that also makes it really challenging in that sense as well. But yeah, like after kind of seeing that and kind of like working in that area, and just seeing like, oh, you make these like goals that are maybe like initially when these goals are made, like it might be like 10 or 15, maybe like 20 years out, but it definitely comes up pretty quick. So I have seen places kind of adjust their goals and kind of redefining it to be like, okay, like every year you reduce waste by this amount or something like that, so there is some adjustment, reduce waste like from the previous year. Based on my previous experience, I think you need more than just like 5 to 10% of a margin of error. So being zero waste, like in a more formal definition, when it's like a goal for like a city or company or university or something, it's sometimes just like a thing to say to kind of be like, I have this goal, or we have this goal. And it's just, they just want to be like, yeah, like we're going to do this. We're trying to achieve this. And there's nothing wrong with that. But what I think happens in reality is that we kind of mostly have to do the best we can. There's just so many factors that are at play, because sometimes you might not have the political support, which is really important actually when you try to achieve these like big goals, because you need buy-in. You need not only like support from big decision makers, but you also do need funding to be able to do a lot of this stuff too, because making a really ambitious goal and then also having no guaranteed funding, really, really challenging. And of course, you have to constantly re-examine your programs because things will change. And as we saw 2 years ago, a lot of things changed overnight. And that doesn't happen all the time. But the reality is that nothing is really guaranteed. And no matter how much work we do, there's always a possibility that a lot of progress can be upended overnight. So some of the lessons that I've learned and I'm still learning from the past couple years is that there's just a lot of work to be done in the sustainability field and zero waste goals still to be met. So we can just keep moving forward. Something that I do like to emphasize about being zero waste is it's challenging. You don't have to be perfect when it comes to being zero waste, because I have been trying to be zero waste for quite a while and it's really hard. I can't get to that like 100%. I have like zero plastic. I have zero things that I'm sending to landfill. And it's also more than just that, right? I'm trying to reduce as much as I can of unnecessary waste. And I think that's what's really important. We're all just trying to do our part. And if more of us do our part, there is definitely more of an impact. And yeah, it's just challenging, and you take it like a couple steps at a time as best as you can, and then like eventually then you kind of look back and you're like, whoa, I used to do this and I've come so far, which is great. It takes a lot of practice, and sometimes there's certain changes that don't really work out for you, and that's just how it is. So kind of challenging to get to that complete zero waste, but great if you can just do your best and do what you can to be able to reduce. I first got involved in zero waste at my college. I got involved in this group. I learned about the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. If you've also never heard of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch before, it basically started as kind of like a urban legend where there's a quote unquote garbage island floating around in the Pacific Ocean that's 2 times the size of Texas. And this isn't exactly what it is. Like, there's a lot of garbage floating around in the Pacific Ocean, but it's not really consolidated as like one island. There's kind of a lot of different areas where there's a lot of garbage, and there's essentially like clusters in multiple areas of the Pacific Ocean because of the ocean currents, which are called gyres. There's like 5 main gyres in the Pacific Ocean, and there's a lot of garbage, among other things, in those areas. And I'm not an oceanographer, so I can't really explain it that well, but I do highly recommend you watching some documentaries. The first documentary I watched that really introduced me to the garbage patch is Plastic Paradise, and it's really informative. I thought it was like super helpful to understand what it is. That documentary is kind of old now. It came out in 2013, but it was really eye-opening, and I really liked it. Another one, if you want to see one that's a little bit more recent, is called The Smog of the Sea. It's only about 30 minutes, so it's pretty quick and easy to watch. And that came out in like 2017, and it follows people, a small crew of people sailing in the middle of the ocean near the Bermuda Triangle, and super isolated area, right? But they just find plastic and other garbage all over the ocean. There's like not really anywhere that they don't see any of that in the ocean, and it's really educational. And both the documentaries I recommend to people. I haven't seen too many other documentaries specifically about the garbage patch that have come out recently, but also recommend for you to look up the garbage patch and learn some things that you can find online. And maybe there's a newer documentary, but I just haven't seen it yet. But yeah, when I first heard about the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, this was really what got me into this zero waste world, because I was astounded. I was like, what is up with all of this plastic? And it's in the oceans. Like, that's terrible. Like, it's one thing if like people litter, which by the way, don't litter, because like that will likely get into the ocean. But it's also just like there's so many other ways that plastic can get into oceans. Like sometimes like sewer systems that might not be designed as well, like it can cause like plastic to get into the oceans if we have like a lot of flooding or really big natural disasters that like destroy homes. Like that can also have a lot of plastic just like floating into oceans and waterways and things like that, and that's huge. Of course, like the plastic pollution problem in our oceans is definitely, I think, is definitely caused by littering and just like our constant desire to always want like single use items, because we're in this very like fast paced society where everyone's just like go, go, go. And so having like single use packaging, like it makes sense for convenience, but at what cost? With plastic, it's one of those things that are the most astounding because plastic is designed to be used for just one time, for a single use, not even like multiple times with multiple people or anything. It's designed to be used once, but it's going to last in the environment basically forever. Like way longer than one lifetime, and so that's just something that I like to bring into as a perspective, because all these things, like all the plastic that's ever been created in the world is still here. It's still on the earth, and mass production of plastic really started, I want to say, in like I think it's like the 50s, maybe like 40s and 50s or something like that. And so it hasn't been around for a really long time. Like plastic existed before the 40s, but it wasn't mass produced in large quantities in really low quality plastics either. That's a big issue with single use plastics, especially. It's very low grade, low quality plastic that people don't really want. It's actually much cheaper to just extract more oil to create plastic. And if you didn't know, plastic is made from oil, and a lot of oil extraction happens in oceans. And when they extract oil from the oceans, there's always spills. So even though there are really big oil spills that get reported on in the news, oil spills happen literally all the time. Even just a little bit of oil getting into oceans, not great, because that's very harmful for our marine life. We also eat the marine life, so it ends up harming us. I'm just constantly being the bearer of bad news today, but we're going to continue moving forward because I want to give you some tips on what changes you can make to reduce the amount of plastic that you're using. It's sad that all of this plastic is a problem, but there are things that we can do. And I think that it's better to make these changes, these small changes in your life, so that you can actually be a little bit nicer to the environment, because we only have one earth, as far as I know. And God gave us this earth, and it's beautiful and it has a lot of resources, but let's not be wasteful, selfish, and just bad stewards. Let's be better stewards, and we can all enjoy the beauties of this earth if we just take care of it a little bit better. So here are some of my tips that I really like to do that I think are great ways to go zero waste. And one thing that I love to do is to bring my own utensils and straws wherever I go. And I literally mean wherever. I have quite a few of these utensil sets because, working in sustainability, you get a lot of freebies, which is a little bit ironic. But they're usually like things that are useful. And so I do have like a set of utensils in pretty much like all of my bags. I used a couple of different bags, and so it's just kind of nicer to have a set in each one. I do also have straws. I have a lot of straws, actually. I don't usually use straws like the skinny ones. I do drink boba, so I do have like the larger straws that can actually be used for boba or like a smoothie. And so it's really great to just like put these in the bags that you regularly use. If you have these utensils with you all the time, it really comes in handy when times that you don't even expect that you'll use it. Because there are times where I've been out and I might have been out a little bit too long. I get a little bit hungry and I'm like near some food places. So I will buy something, and then and even if I like didn't plan to do that, like I have my utensil set and I can use it instead of getting like the single use utensils, which aren't even recyclable, by the way. I know that there are some places that will say that you can throw like the plastic utensils into the recycling, but I really hate to be the bearer of bad news, but those are really cheap plastic. A lot of times it doesn't make it through the machinery to be able to actually separate it and or to actually be able to collect all of those plastic utensils so that they can get recycled, because the machines just aren't the places that sort through all of these recyclables into their different categories, they are not able to separate it. Most of them do not. And again, like I said, it is a little bit political on what gets thrown into each of the carts. So sometimes it's just the agreement that the city had with the garbage company. And that's why they say that the plastic utensils can be recycled. There are some utensils that are compostable. Those are a little bit controversial as well. But just be wary of those things. Like I said, it's way better to just reduce unnecessary waste when you don't need it, when you don't have to have it or use it. So do the best you can, and I think utensils are a really great one. You don't need to have any fancy utensil sets. You can just get your own utensils, like one set, like one fork, spoon, chopsticks, maybe a butter knife. Get a cloth napkin, or just get a towel, like a small towel that you wouldn't mind using, to wrap it up so you can put your straw in there as well. Wrap it up, grab a rubber band. It's super simple. You don't need anything fancy. Just a towel or a cloth napkin that's big enough to wrap those utensils. Just use that. You don't need to buy a $15 bamboo utensil set. I do have some, yes, but you don't need it. It's probably better for you to just use what you have, which is also more sustainable. Using what you have and utilizing all your resources. That's always a good way to first think about what are the things that you can use so you don't unnecessarily buy other things. So always a good mindset. And another thing that I also really like to do is to bring a container with me whenever I go to eat out, because you're not always sure if you're going to have any leftovers. So it's just good to be prepared. I have these really great collapsible containers that I really like. They're made of silicone and very lightweight and very convenient to put into my bags. So I encourage you to find those. Or if you want metal containers, they're a little bit lighter weight and less fragile than using glass containers. I personally do really love using glass containers though, especially for soup. Glass containers are super great about having a tight seal, because I will say the silicone collapsible containers, I get a little bit worried sometimes if it's not tight, but glass ones are great because they're very leak proof most of the time, and so are jars, especially if you use mason jars. Super amazing. Love mason jars. They're also great for food prepping, and you can microwave glass containers. So overall, just really awesome. But use what containers you prefer. If you're also a person that doesn't finish food, this might not apply to you. But for those of you who tend to have some leftovers, this is a really great tip and very helpful, because even if you don't take your leftovers, maybe your friends have leftovers. You can just take theirs if they don't want it. So win-win. And one that I actually kind of failed at recently. So in general, I usually try not to microwave or heat up food in plastic because it's just really not good for you. But something that I really didn't think about until I attended a plastics webinar was that the speaker was saying how plastics, the toxicity levels of plastics vary a lot depending on the different types of plastic that are being used and how it was processed. So plastic, even if it contains food and it says on the label that you can heat up the food in that pouch, it's really not good for you to do that, because you're definitely going to be exposing your body to a lot of toxic chemicals, because plastics are highly processed. So definitely have a lot of chemicals that are not good for us. And it turns out that plastics are actually not thoroughly tested by the FDA or EPA. And yeah, apparently they don't test plastics thoroughly. And the safe levels of toxic chemicals in plastics aren't actually that low. The speaker at the plastics webinar was saying that in order to reduce the safe levels to a good and actually safe level for humans is to reduce one particular chemical by 20,000 times. And that was jarring to hear. But that's a thing. So if you ever buy convenient food where it's like, oh, you can heat up this food in boiling water in the pouch, don't listen to the pouch. Don't believe those things. Please don't. Labels lie. Labels lie a lot. So don't do that. And I will admit I had just done that a couple days before that webinar, but I'm not going to do that anymore. I've learned my lesson, and hopefully you will learn my lesson as well. And speaking of labels lying, be wary of things that are just greenwashing. Be wary of things that will say, oh, this is 100% recyclable and compostable. Don't listen to that. I honestly hate it when something says that it's 100% recyclable or compostable, because that is just lies. If something is both recyclable and compostable, it likely means that it's just going to go to the trash. And especially if something says, oh, this is made from 100% recyclable or compostable content, that especially means that it is going to the trash, because if it's mixed materials, it can't actually be recycled or composted. Be also wary of things that say they are biodegradable, because biodegradable is not actually a regulated term. Compostable is what you want to see if you want to make sure that something can actually be tossed into the compost. So just be wary of greenwashing. It's not necessarily better for the environment just because it says it's green or environmentally friendly on the packaging. You kind of have to really examine things. And if you have any questions about that, just feel free to message me or leave comments and stuff if you're not sure. I love answering these questions. I was actually just recently asked whether or not hair ties can be biodegradable, and they're not. If it says biodegradable, it really means nothing. And I can get into that in a different episode if you're interested. I will love to know what all of you listening want to hear, because I want to put out episodes that are actually interesting to people. So just let me know. Now I want to talk about packaging of products I buy. This has been a pretty big one for me. I think about this a lot now. So I live in the US, I live in the Bay Area, and here it's very fast paced. And sometimes I need to buy things out of convenience. But I have been trying a little bit more to be critical of where I buy and my purchasing habits. So just think, do you really need to get something shipped to you in 2 days? Do you really need that convenience? Because there's a lot of implications when it comes to having that 2-day convenience. Because one, it means that there's a lot of packaging you'll get from whatever item that you buy, because boxes, companies don't want to purchase a million different sizes of boxes, so they're just going to get one that's convenient, and it might be 10 times the size of what you ordered. I've seen so many images of that shared on social media of just what is up with this? This is a huge box and there's a tiny little thing. But that's just kind of what happens. And so unnecessary packaging will come in that, because it'll be a big box. You need things to be stuffed in there, maybe plastic air pillows, or those packing peanuts that are made of styrofoam, which styrofoam, terrible. Try to avoid styrofoam at all costs. And ordering things in 2 days also puts a lot of strain on delivery companies, because you're trying to meet these deadlines, and then you get you might get fined. I don't know what's in their contract, but these things can possibly be really bad, or can have a lot of compromises when you're trying to meet those kind of deadlines. And also, it's more fuel, usually that's more fossil fuels that are being used in order to meet those deadlines. So I just encourage you to try to think about whether you could just go to the store and buy what you need instead of ordering it online. And I really mean just you going to the store and looking for it, because even if you do curbside pickup and stuff, sometimes there's extra packaging. They might give you a plastic bag, and maybe you don't want a plastic bag. I always don't want a plastic bag. So I've started to not really do the curbside pickup for some things anymore, because I want to make sure that I don't get a bag. Sometimes I still do it. I'm not perfect, but I try to avoid getting any plastic bags. And in California, we have a plastic bag ban, and a lot of cities all across the state have their own, because even if the state has a plastic bag ban, it only applies to certain places, because that's just how our government works. I can get into that in a different episode. Anyway, so just really think about packaging of the items that you buy. Also great if you can support local businesses. I know it was really hard the past year. A lot of people want to ship everything. So, we still want to make sure that you're all being safe and not making unnecessary trips, now that things are getting a little bit better, but still be careful. Supporting local small businesses are really great. Also has a much bigger impact on that business if you support them versus going to like a major retailer. Another thing I usually take into consideration now with my purchases is how much plastic is in the item that I want to buy. This creates a new mindset where the amount of plastic in the item or in the packaging could be a make or break for me on whether I buy it. And it can be hard to follow this because there's just so much plastic everywhere. So there are times where I do have to make an exception. But I think that if you do this enough and where you kind of shift this thinking enough times, you'll kind of get into this habit of like, okay, like I don't really need that because it has a lot of plastic, or I could get this at another store at a different time, like then that way you'll start buying less of those items that contain so much plastic, and then you'll get closer to being zero waste. And I love shopping at Trader Joe's as much as the next person, but there are some products that I don't buy there just because of the packaging. Like their pasta always comes in a plastic bag. Cucumbers are all individually wrapped in plastic. And I have other convenient locations that I can go to buy unwrapped cucumbers and pasta that doesn't come in plastic. Like I can buy it in like a paper box. So I do that. I have to go to like different locations, but for me, it's not too out of my way. But that's just something that I do. And actually, I was just buying mascara the other day, and I was looking at the other options, and I realized that there are some mascaras that have like an extra cap on them because they have the wand out so you can see like the shape of the wand. And I was just thinking, oh, that's like just extra waste. I should just get like the one that it's already inside. I don't need to see the wand of the mascara before I actually use it. Like there's a picture, it's fine. And also, of course, like I'm trying to be better about this too. If you use less makeup, that is more zero waste. Or if you don't use makeup at all, that is very sustainable. Good for you. Unfortunately, I still use makeup, so I'm not perfect. And something that I really want to say is that glitter sucks. If you don't know, glitter is just small, tiny pieces of plastic. And then it washes into the sewer, then gets into the ocean. It's not good for the environment. Don't use glitter. Please. Glitter really sucks. Anyway, moving on. I hate to be the bearer of bad news again. I've been pretty much the bearer of bad news the whole episode so far. But your clothes are plastic and polluting our oceans. So polyester is made of plastic, which means that it's made of extracted oils. And there's this really big problem about microplastics. And a lot of that issue comes from people just washing their clothes, like through like the machine and also hand washing. Like it doesn't really matter. Microplastics, like the microfibers of your clothes will shed. And since a lot of clothes are like made of plastic, or they're polyester, or I think nylon's also plastic, that goes into the oceans, and they're so tiny that like our sewer systems can't filter those microfibers out. So there's a lot of fibers in the ocean. So something that I have been trying to do a little bit more is making sure that I buy clothes that are made of more natural fibers. So getting things that are like 100% cotton, or maybe made from like hemp, or even like wool. If you're comfortable with wearing wool, just be mindful of the types of clothes that you're buying. The material type really matters. My opinion is that if a product is 100% of one material, the clothing will usually be a little bit higher quality. But yeah, buy quality clothes that will last. Please don't buy fast fashion. And if you do, please don't buy it as much. Buy it less. Reducing is really just the key. It really goes a long way. Yeah, and like another thing to not buy anymore is bottled water. Plastic bottled water is not even better for you. If you think that any bottled water is filtered, I hate to shatter the glass for you, but it's not filtered. Please get a reusable water bottle and bring it with you everywhere. You can refill it in places instead of using like a little plastic cup, because again, plastic. Like it'll help you. Yeah, it'll help you drink more water. Most people don't drink enough water, so it'll just be good for you. Also, a lot of the companies that bottle water, they don't even actually pay for the water. They are basically just stealing that water and then making 100% profit. So keep that in mind. They're not paying for the water, and they're also polluting a lot too when they like truck all the water out. A lot of it's also on indigenous land, all that stuff. So please don't buy bottled water, especially if you have good tap water. If you have good tap water, you really don't need to buy bottled water. Even in Southern California, you can drink the tap. I will say it does taste different than water in Northern California, but you can still drink it. There are definitely places where the water from the tap is not safe to drink. So, of course, like bottled water is necessary in those situations, but buying like 1 gallon container of water, if you drink your appropriate amount of water, buy the larger containers instead of like individual smaller ones. Just doing what we can, Get a reusable water bottle. If you need one and you're in the Bay Area, I have so many water bottles. So if you need one, I can definitely give you one. Some of them are used and some of them aren't, but let me know. I can get you a reusable one, but please make sure you use it. A lot of times people will drink a lot of sugary and caffeinated drinks, which just dehydrate your body, and then they don't actually replenish their body with plain water. So please take care of your bodies. It's good for your health and it'll help your skin, better for your mood, all these different great benefits. Water is great. Drink more water. So yeah, in conclusion, there are a lot of different things that you can do and a lot of habit changes that you can make in order to be more zero waste. And you don't have to do all of these things at once. All this change being like completely zero waste, it's not going to happen overnight. This has taken me years and years to even get to this point where I really just shift my mindset on how I purchase things, where I buy things, like all these considerations. It's taken me a long time to get here, and I've not always been like this. So it takes time. Give yourself a little bit of grace to be like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to get there in due time, but it will take some time. So try choosing maybe like 1 or 2 new things that you're going to start doing and just try it out, and hopefully it'll work out for you. If it doesn't, then try something different, because again, making all these changes, you got to do what's right for you. Like one time I tried making my own toothpaste and it was fine, but my teeth have a habit of having plaque buildup. So I needed to start using like anti-plaque toothpaste. So unfortunately, that was like a little bit of a step back, but if you can do other things to cut down, that's also super helpful. Also, a rule that I gave myself a couple years ago to cut down on my shopping habits was I could only buy clothes that were secondhand or really good quality that would last me for a really, really long time. And when I made this rule, I discovered this really awesome thrift store. So I did actually buy quite a bit of clothes from there. But like after a while, I just stopped going in person because I was like, I have enough clothes. I don't need any more. And then I also stopped paying attention to all those emails that I got from like retailers when they said that they would have a sale. Huge game changer. Really, really, really changed my shopping habits. And it also helped me save a lot of money. So if you want to save money or if you want to reduce your environmental impact, definitely encourage you to do that. Find what works for you, because these changes, it's not really like a one size fits all. There's also so many different things that you can do. So just do some searching online and find something that you think that you can do. There's honestly so much. And if you want any like direction on what like you can do and what you should search for, just message me. I'm definitely here to offer any tips. And if you do all of these different things that I've mentioned in this episode, that's awesome. Thank you for all of your efforts. Needless to say, there's so many more tips other than the ones that I've mentioned in this episode. So always just keep a lookout for a new thing that you can start doing to be more zero waste. I'm typically a fan of learning about new ways to repurpose an item that I otherwise would have just been throwing away in the garbage, or I just reassess some things that I use that I don't really need anymore, so that I tell myself I'll just stop buying it after I use it up. And, that really helps the wallet in the long run, and that's always a plus. So if you have any questions, or like maybe you have a tip on how to go zero waste, feel free to just leave comments or send me messages or something. Love to hear them. And always looking for feedback and suggestions for my episodes. So thanks for listening. That's it for this episode. So thanks for listening. And if you like this episode, please remember to subscribe to this podcast on the platform that you're listening to get notifications when I have new episodes out, so that you can also remember to share this with anyone that you think might like it. And if you're on social media, please follow me on Instagram at sustainablepixel and like my Facebook page at facebook.com/sustainablepixelpodcast. As usual, I hope you all stay safe and make good choices. Bye.